lost private. We're in Normandy.
Thanks for checking in here at the We're Not Lost Private podcast. We appreciate all your support. But do you know how else you can support us? By signing up at Patreon. For $3 a month, you'll have access to all of our episodes, plus access to all kinds of bonus material, like our quarterly newsletter, photographs, and official paperwork, and research that goes into each and every show. You can follow the pod on a multitude of platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, pretty much anywhere you catch your pods. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Welcome, everybody, to episode 37 of the We're Not Lost Private podcast. I'm your host, Joe Muccia. Great to be back. I was on a little bit of a vacation, and that's basically what led to this episode. I know for some of you, you've probably been waiting with bated breath for episodes on WWII fighting, D-Day and post-D-Day, and some other stuff that I've teased out. Those pods probably require just a bit more research before they're ready for public consumption. But I wanted to talk about something that popped up on my vacation. I was able to bookend a couple of museum visits while I was out on vacation with my family. And those of you who have seen the advert, obviously, the first museum I got to stop by was the Museum of the Mighty 8th Air Force in Pooler, Georgia. And the second museum is the UDT Navy SEAL Museum in Fort Pierce, Florida. Both museums are outstanding in their own right, and I will attempt to keep it focused on World War II with regard to both museums. A little easier with the Mighty 8th Museum versus the UDT SEAL Museum. Of the two, obviously UDT and Navy SEALs have a shorter history and timeline than, say, the Mighty 8th, but both of them have some really excellent displays. So without further ado, I'll present my thoughts on both the museums. For those of you that are watching this on YouTube, it's not going to be a very visual episode, but if you're a Patreon subscriber, I will have lots of photographs from both museums posted up. For the Mighty 8th, again, it's in Pooler, Georgia. It's an excellent museum. You're greeted with a number of external displays, including an F-4 Phantom, a MiG, a B-57. I did learn recently that the museum is going to take possession of a B-24 bomber, which will round out its aircraft display in terms of aircraft that served in the Mighty 8th, which is nice. They're getting it from Barksdale Air Force Base. It's been on public display. At some point, it'll be transported to Pooler, where it'll be put on display. And I'm not sure if it's going to be an external or internal display. But regardless, it's great that they're going to be getting a B-24. They all already have a B-17, which I'll get to. You have to pay to get into both museums. In this case, there is a veteran's discount if you're a veteran for the Mighty 8th. But once you enter the building, you enter the rotunda in the central portion of the building, and you're greeted by a kiosk for Masters of the Air, in which Nate Mann, the actor who portrayed Rosie Rosenthal, talks a little bit about Masters of the Air. So if you are interested in Masters of the Air and the 100th Bomb Group, there is a significant presence here in the Mighty 8th Air Force Museum, which I'm sure many of you who are fans of that series will enjoy visiting if you get the chance. They are not the only bomb group or the only group that is represented, which I find to be fantastic. I mean, you never really want to make a museum or something like that about a singular group. In this case, while the 100th carries a lot of cachet and a lot of visibility on it because of Masters of the Air, it does allow it to shine a light on other bomb groups that served in the 8th, which I'm glad to see. Especially somebody who's been deeply involved in the Band of Brothers and the Easy Company 506 story for so long. There's a tendency to overshadow so many different units that served in the 101st Airborne. So I'm always happy when I see that happening, where some of the units that have lesser light shined on them get a chance to shine in their own right. Once you pay your fee, you start to work your way through the inner portion of the museum. In this case, it basically explains the run up to World War II. Obviously, with the Air Corps being part of the Army at the time, they didn't have as long a history uh, as their other services. So basically, for them, outside of um, World War One and the interwar years, there's not a whole lot of history for them. So they spend a bit of that pre-war and interwar year portion explaining the run up to World War II. In that, there is a lot of different displays in that corridor that lead up to uh, the attack on Pearl Harbor, which they do have a piece of the Arizona in there, which is pretty mind-boggling when you see it and the way it's displayed. It's very, very nicely displayed. They have a number of German uniforms and German weapons that had been captured over time, and they were brought back and donated to the museum. And some of them are in very good shape. They also do talk about the Japanese uh, portion of the war, the Pacific War, and there is some stuff there that I find very interesting. But it gets you to the major portion of the war, and when you make your way through that area, it opens up into another area where they start it very slow in terms of you're not bombarded with airframes and pictures of the battles over Europe. You'll get to that, but really it kind of starts into here's some of the early groups, and they work their way through. There's lots of uniform displays. If you're a big fan of A2 flight jackets, there's a ton of them. The jacket art is outstanding. Great to see them, all the original jackets and their artwork out there. Very talented artists within the Air Corps that did them. You also get to see a lot of flak damaged items. They do have those on display. Canteens, pieces of the aircraft that had jagged holes punched through them because of the flak burst that hit them. So there's a great representation of that. And then it opens up into an area where they have an armorer's display set up. My to me, this is a great has a lot of meaning to me because my grandfather was an armorer on a Pacific-based B-24 squadron. So seeing the armorers represented well definitely warms my heart to see that. There is a briefing area where you can go in and get a mission briefing. Those of you who've traveled to Normandy and done and gone through the Dead Man's Corner Museum, and you get your pre-mission briefing before the jump into Normandy. This is similar in that they give you a pre-mission briefing for a target. It's pretty cool. It's well done. Once you come out of that, they have a recovered B-17 wing that the effort to reacquire that wing and have it returned to the museum is represented as well. I have some pictures of it that, again, I'll post up of our Patreon. If you're a Patreon subscriber, I think you'll find it interesting. From there, it opens up into the larger gallery where you move in and you kind of see some of the you get to see there are two examples of the Norden bomb site. There's a third one, obviously, in their B-17. The B-17 they do have on display is a late war one with the twin 50 caliber chin turret. They also have a P-51, and then they have the nose area of a B-17. I'll also add there's lots of interactive displays, especially if you have younger folks or kids that you bring to the museum. They'll have some things to do and to see. Once you get done gawking at all the airframes, as I did, and I shot a lot of pictures of the B-17, and again, those will be posted up for everybody to take a look at, you move into the area where it's focused on the bomb groups themselves, but you also, it's kind of a T intersection where you hit this point. And if you go to the left, you can go into where the groups are represented. And if you go to the right, it takes you to a very well done display for a stalag, and where a lot of the down flyers were incarcerated after being captured. Uh, and there are a lot of artifacts there as well, hand knitted vests, parcels, Red Cross parcels, all these things, all camp accoutrements, uh, homemade radio sets that, like you saw in the miniseries. All these things are represented there, and they're well represented. And they even have a bunkhouse, a mock-up of a bunkhouse for you going, and there's a loudspeaker with German guards like like screaming at you as you're walking through this area. And that'll take you back up and around towards the areas where you start to see the impacts of the bombing on Germany, which is also well represented. Um, they show there's a lot of monitors up playing footage, um, air signal corps footage shot during a lot of missions, not to mention bomb footage, where you can really see the full scope of what the massed bombing was doing to Germany. Interestingly, they also have a Nazi flag that was repatriated from one of the prison camps, and then the army trooper who recovered it had many of the POWs sign it, and it is displayed where you can go and actually get up close enough where you can start reading through the names of the POWs that had signed the flag. It's a really beautiful artifact in terms of what it represents. And if you head back, you can go into that T intersection again and walk into where all the groups are. And the groups each have their own case, and including the 100th, which is one of the first groups that's represented. And for those of you again that are fans of the miniseries, they have Buck Cleven's medals, they have Bucky Egan's medals, they have Rosie Rosenthal's Distinguished Flying Cross, if I'm not mistaken. They have Bucky's fez that he wore. So it's very, very interesting. There's lots of you'll see things that you'll recognize and faces that you'll recognize. As Ken Lemons is represented as well in a picture. So there's lots of memorable items for fans of the miniseries you'll be able to check out. And again, all through these group displays, the A2 jackets and the artwork is really well represented. Not to mention, and what I find is a very warm personal touch to it, some of these men actually made models of their aircraft and donated them to the museum, and some of those are on display. But you'll also see things like map boards, you'll see silk escape and evasion maps, and all of these were from crew members who donated them to the museum. So none of these are a representative item or a reproduction item. These are all the legitimate items that were donated by men who carried them into battle. They have pieces of German fighters that had, if the German fighter had been shot down and pieces of it impacted the aircraft and were brought back, these were donated as well. So and then they were signed by the crewmen. So there's some really interesting items on display there. And as you work your way through the World War II section, there's also a Vietnam section where they start to talk about the B-52s and things of that nature. And I'm not going to go into that stuff as much as I have gone back into the World War II stuff. But to me, it's a great museum. It's right off of I-95, so it's not like you got to drive deep into the heart of Georgia to find it. If you're on a trip, it's a little like a 2-minute detour off of 95 to go over there. It's time well spent. And again, because of the popularity of Masters of the Air, you're seeing a bump in interest there. And the more interest means the more foot traffic. More foot traffic means they're going to start seeing more and more improvements to the museum. And like I said, they're getting a B-24 as well, which will round out their collection. It really is a great museum. It's tucked away. It's almost like somebody's little secret, but it's not. So if you have some time to get down to Pooler, Georgia, to go visit the Mighty Eighth Museum, I highly recommend it. If you're going to be in that area anytime soon, on the 21st of June, they're going to have an author talk. Crumb's crew, the B-17 Jack the Ripper. Dr. Rebecca Youngblood Vaughn is the author of the book about her father's crew, and she'll be presenting there. It's free to the public, but you do need to register to attend. So I highly recommend, if you get a chance, to head down there for that. It's just a wonderful museum, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, the second museum I got to visit on the back end of my trip, again, I was lucky to be able to bookend these to my trip and have my family put up with me pulling them off the route and going. And this one's a little bit more difficult to get to. You definitely have to deviate off I-95 about a half an hour off of to get to Fort Pierce. And I'm sure a lot of people are asking, well, why is the UDT a Navy SEAL museum in Fort Pierce? And Fort Pierce was the original training base for the UDT teams to the run up of two and during World War II. So it really cements the history there when you go to that location, because that's where a lot of the UDT teams trained there. Now, the UDT and Navy SEAL Museum, again, you have to pay to get in. You can, there is a veteran discount and a first responder discount, so you can get a discount to go in. It's very well organized. There is a lot of exterior displays, a lot more than the Mighty Eighth Museum, and they recommend you go through the interior of the museum first and then go through the exterior of the museum. And we followed that as well. So we went in, they have docents available to guide you, or you can self-guide when you go in. And unlike other museums, the SEAL Museum starts at modern day and works its way back to the UDT SEAL origins. So when you first walk in, you walk into their modern area, and there's a MH-60 Black Hawk, a number of off-road vehicles that have been used by the SEALs in time, including modern equipment and weapons, all displayed uh, for you to take a look at, and in some cases handle, which I thought was very interesting, because not a lot of museums allow you to handle a lot of the material. If you're looking to if you're looking to see the evolution of SEAL weaponry and weaponry and UDT weaponry, this is a great museum to go to because it's all on display. Now, for me, I have a personal interest in going there because I've written about Grenada. I released a book called Cry Havoc. It's about the U.S. Army Rangers combat jump into Grenada, but I'm also working on other books in that series, and one of them will eventually cover Navy SEAL participation. And so this is one of the places you can go and see. Grenada usually flies under the radar of most historians because it's looked at as a, it's not one of your mainstream operations in terms of popularity, but really, if you're talking about special operations or you're talking about contingency operations, Grenada really was the help to cement special operations as a part of the United States military, and then basically force the rest of the military branches to start working better together. And so Grenada is a pretty important piece of this. I know I'm dovetailing off of World War II. Don't worry, I'm going to get us back on track. In this case, you get to see the modern operations that SEALs have taken place in, including there's load-bearing equipment and soft vest of a SEAL who had been wounded in action, including all the shrapnel that they dug out of the hard plates from that SEAL's body armor, and they're all on display as well. It's pretty sobering and impressive display if you get a chance. You can walk right up to the Black Hawk if you want to climb in the troop compartment. You can do that. They do have a minigun at the door gunner's position. You cannot get behind that, but it is cool to see it there. Again, you get to see a lot of the off-road vehicles, and including a personal favorite, the Toyota Hilux, which I actually had one in Afghanistan that I absolutely loved. You can beat the heck out of them. They're great vehicles. But once you're done with the modern area, you start to work your way back and you get into the Vietnam section, which is a very robust one as well. But there's also the modern contingency operations, like SEALs took part in the battles in Somalia in '93, so they're represented there. Uh, they were part of the manhunts during the Balkans Wars. So all this stuff is represented there and well represented. And I really thought the displays were very interesting and well done. Again, the Vietnam one, there's a display with the mannequins, with all the different weapons types that the SEALs used. If you're big into weaponry and kind of those not run of the main mill weapon systems, they have stoners on display, which I thought was really cool. But once you move back through that area, you kind of get into the Korea and World War II area, and the World War II area is really well done. For those of you that sat through my episode with Dev Ramsamy when we talked about Navy combat demolition units at Omaha Beach, and again, I'm trying to get Dev to come back on now that he's gone to Normandy and come back. The display there is really well done, and they show the evolution of the Navy combat demolition units and how they operated. They have full accounting of all the members of Naval Combat Demolition Units 1 and 2. They also have a nice display where they have a mannequin in his HBTs and he's setting a charge against the side of a Belgian gate. They actually have the front end of a Belgian gate in the display, which I also thought was really cool. They have displays of German and Japanese weapons that were captured by Navy Combat Demolition Unit men and brought back and put on display. They have a hell box, which for those of you who don't know what that is essentially it's the charging box that you ignite your charges through that with an electrical charge by twisting the handle on it. They have one of those on display. All of it's really well done. Once you exit the museum and head to the exterior portion of it, basically you start right in the area where they have recovered a number of original um, obstacle mock-ups that had been laid in and around the sand at Fort Pierce for the Navy Combat Demolition Unit teams to practice on before deploying overseas. Again, I'll have all these pictures will be posted up in a Patreon for everybody to take a look at. It's very well done. They have them. You can see the damage from the sea. A lot of them are rusted or damaged from being blown to bits with charges, but they were all represented very well, and you get to walk around that area. Once you're done in that area, you get to go through the memorial wall, which is a very sobering display of losses within the UDT and SEAL community. And then they have two mock-ups of the Gemini capsules and Apollo capsules that you can take a look at. Because the UDT teams who used to do the dive work to ensure that the space capsules were hooked up to the helicopters before they were recovered from the sea. So they had to practice on those. And then there's a number of PBRs and small boats that were used in Vietnam all the way through the modern day. And then they have a great mock-up of the SEAL obstacle courses that you're not really allowed to run through them. I mean, you can, but if you injure yourself, it's on you. It says it right on the placard, which is really fun. Because all you see is little kids running around and running over the obstacles, or the adults just sitting there, just nodding their heads, going, "Yeah, I don't need to break an arm or a leg or anything today." But again, it's a beautiful museum. The weather was fantastic when we got there too, so it was great to walk around. And some of the SEAL ships you can actually climb up on, their boats you can climb up on and take a look at them. They're really impressive in terms of the scale and the power of you can almost feel the power of the size of these boats and how much horsepower their engines carried. But I think that about wraps it up. Again, I'm going to get to work on those other episodes and get them ready for everyone. Now that we're going to be knee deep in the post D-Day Normandy campaign, I'd like to get those out soon. I've got an interesting episode I'm working on about Curry 506 Currahys and their familial relations. I'm doing the finishing up the WWII. I've spoken to historian Matt May about coming back on. Those of you who remember way back when the pod first started, we had Matt come on with Jim Blakely to talk about Jim's dad and Masters of the Air. Matt's agreed to come back on at some point. I'll touch base with him and put a pin in the calendar, and we'll talk about the 100th again. And on top of that, looking forward to getting Henry Sledge on to talk about his new book and his father. Uh, that'll be a great episode. And I've also spoken with Dave Holland about coming on and talking Guadalcanal. Dave's been has been pounding the pod pavement, sitting down with my friends Mike and Neil on their Tales from the Core podcast to talk about Guadalcanal. I'm looking forward to having Dave come on and do the same. So lots of stuff coming up. I'm looking forward to unloading it for all of you. Thanks again for everybody. I want to thank all of our Patreon members again. Thanks for supporting the pod. We'll be doing some equipment updates soon, so hopefully the quality of the pod will improve. Looking to get a new camera and some new mic equipment. So hopefully you'll see the difference over the next couple of months. But again, thanks for everybody checking in. And if you have comments, please leave them. And if you you have an idea for a podcast, if you're a historian, you want to come on and talk about a topic of interest in World War II, please reach out. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks again, everybody.